Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. Let me turn my glass here to have the Seahorse. I'm almost out of Chardonnay, so you'll probably see me switch to Pinot Noir. Holly, you sipping on a summer ale?
I'm doing Oktoberfest. It's
Oktoberfest. So good.
Oktoberfest still. It started the 21st and it runs through October 3rd and I still have my Oktoberfest beer because I
Woo!
don't drink very many of them, so they're lasting me the whole Oktoberfest.
Right, right. And I will tell you guys, when I did visit Holly, just a few, now it's been almost a month,
That's
hasn't
been
it?
a couple months, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Time
it feels like
flies.
yesterday. I'm ready to go back. But when I
Yeah.
did go visit her, I'm not a beer person. I couldn't tell you anything about beer. But when I tried these specialty beers, like they were really good. Like, I mean, what was the
Mhm.
one I liked so much, Holly?
Oh my goodness. I can't even remember, Kelly. Was it our local beer from
I think
Sierra
so.
Nevada? Yeah,
That was it.
it
Yep.
was one of the Sierra Nevada summer beers. I think it was the Summerfest,
I think so too.
I
Summerfest.
think.
So, anyways, if you ever get to California, try their beers, even if you're not a beer drinker, because they're pretty
And
good.
Sierra Nevada Brewery, they also have a brewery in North Carolina. So
Awesome.
they've expanded, and yeah, Sierra Nevada is my local brewery, and they're pretty big worldwide, I think, now. So very
See,
good.
Very cool.
Cheryl's here
So,
already.
they what?
Cheryl's
Oh,
here.
there she is. Yep, that's Cheryl.
I
I
was gonna
mentioned
say,
to you would be joining us.
so Holly told us that Cheryl would be with us tonight. Hello, welcome. I see Sophie there again. So we always start off talking about, what we're drinking and such. I promise we're gonna get to seahorses. I promise. That's the goal of the channel. But it is a community channel where basically we get together. We try to have certain, episodes where we have special guests that talk about different topics, whether it be, things that go in the aquarium. What happened with last week? We had a person with a problem with their seahorses. We're talking with Sophie about Sophie's getting ready to set up a seahorse tank, not like tomorrow, but we're talking about planning an episode for newcomers where she can come in and ask every question a newcomer might have. And then we'll tag that video in that episode for people in the future. Because a lot of times, if we don't have a topic or we don't have a guest, we'll just sit here and talk, right? Which is good. It's the community. That's what's good. That's what we want to do. But I want people to be able to find the episodes when they want that information, right? I did make a how to set up a seahorse tank video, but it's really old now. And I personally, honestly, would change some of the things that I said. I need to remake a video. It's about how much time we have in the day, right? So Wine Wednesday is a good way to get your questions answered on the spot and, have us talk about it live so that there's no question. But I want people in the future to be able to find it. So, Sophie, I would just say to you, Ray said he gave you my information. Please reach out to me because we'd
She
love
did.
to have.
Yes, here
Looks
she
like
messaged
she
you.
did in the comments, it
Okay,
says.
all
You
right.
probably just haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it then. So I'm going to look for that. And what I would say is it'd be really cool to have you jump in at different stages and be like, so here's where I'm at. I've cleaned the tank. Now, what about cycling? And then we could have that chat. And then, when you get to the point, because obviously nobody expects you to do this overnight. And then when you get to the point where I'm ready to buy seahorses. So now what's that entail? We can do that in stages. And yeah, we welcome you and think it's so cool that you're setting up for seahorses and want to help you. And for Cheryl, uh, you're going to milk a few goats and
Yeah.
then you're going to come back and grab some wine. Awesome. So again, we jumped in here and Holly wasn't sure like if you were joining us because you're about to set up for seahorses or if you have seahorses
She's
or
about
whatnot.
to. I
Okay.
do know that much. She has a tank ready to go that she got from
Okay.
somebody else, kind of like the way I did mine. So
Okay.
I think she's
Well,
looking for some guidance.
Cheryl, we're here for all your questions. And I would say the invitation goes to you and anyone else. Anyone who's willing to actually jump into the live stream, we can give you a link and it's pretty simple. Last week proved it. What was her name last week? I'm so bad with names. Do you guys remember what her name was last week?
Who were your what was it about?
The
The
person who
girl that
jumped in
jumped in with her
that was
problem.
having trouble. Anyways,
Oh,
it doesn't matter.
starts with a Lisa, maybe something like
So
that.
again, please don't take that disrespectfully. I care about each and every one of you. I'm just horrible with names, like
Mhm.
horrible. I'll know your face forever, but I'm terrible with names. Anyways, my point
Well,
is,
that's better
we
than me. I don't even remember faces.
well, point being, she was able to jump in and ask her questions live. She
Mhm.
chose to be on camera some of the time and off camera some of the time. So I'm just saying there's all these options. If you ever want to jump in the stream and talk with us live and ask your questions, we'll send you a link. You can choose whether you have your video on and then really be in the thick of it, because sometimes the chat's a little delayed or I can't keep up with it if there's too many questions. So just saying that invitation is always available if you ever want to jump in, but we're here for questions in the comment section too. And before I get ahead of myself, I just want to say, Zen, did you get your shirt? Yay, I got mine.
Yay!
Holly got hers. So I will say this is a learning experience, guys. We were discussing before we went live that this is way too big. It was supposed to be smaller and, like a pocket thing. And instead it's kind of framing something else, but learning experience, right? It's still cool. And the back, this is Shyla's shirt, which I will be sending to her. I'm opening it live just to show you, Shyla, that it was packaged, and I will repackage it. But I wanted to show the back without standing up and, trying to maneuver. So the back is really cool. I think it turned out really, really good. The front's a little big, like I said, right? A
Oh,
little
Zen
big.
got hers, she says. Yay.
Yay. And
And
the
I
back, though,
have
look at the back.
Bonnie's. I have to send it. I got Bonnie's by mistake.
And this isn't doing it justice because it's putting a shadow on it. There's no shadow. It's like
It
it's just,
looks cool. I don't know. Well,
yeah.
to turn
My light's doing a shadow.
I don't
It
know.
doesn't have the streaks in it, is my point. Once you wear it live, it doesn't have the streaks. Maybe if I get up closer, maybe. So it's just this outline. I think it turned out really good. I really like it,
Mhm.
except for, again, learning experience. This is the first year, guys. So next year's shirts we'll know to make the front smaller and maybe up a little and left a little, or right a little, left a little. But they're still cool. We still match. We still have member shirts now, right? And if I
Yeah.
do future shirts for future members, I will correct this, but we'll still all match if we ever get together or on our live stream or whatever. I did also, because I'm getting serious about the shop or whatever, I'm getting serious about the website, period, because what's really important is the information. But having Seahorse gear is also cool. So I got some other samples I just wanted to show you real quick. I freaking love them. I'm so excited. Like, and my daughter was like, only Seahorse people would wear this. Well, I don't think so. I think they're just cool. So
True.
this hoodie,
True, but cool.
check out this
You mean
hoodie.
there's someone in the world besides seahorse people?
I know, right? But here, I need to make myself big while I'm showing these real quick. So
Yeah.
check out this hoodie.
Let's see what you got.
Only captive bred seahorses in my tank, but it's just a cool design, right? It's just a cool hoodie,
That's
right?
cool.
I
Yeah.
know. I
And
love it.
it's
I love it.
sweatshirt style too. That'll be cool
Right.
for winter because I'll be freezing here in the winter.
And then this, I just love this. This is more like Wicked
Oh, that's
Seahorse or whatever, but
artsy.
isn't that neat? I
Oh,
mean, and it
wow.
has like Seahorse Whisperer, but it's just a cool shirt without, too much emphasis.
And that's
I mean,
one of those long nose seahorses. I love the
yes.
ones with the long snouts.
Yes.
So there's a
So,
couple of them that have that, and I love those breeds. They're cool.
and then I'm just
All
showing
we
that
need is a camera that reads the mirror image of what you're taking the picture of.
Right. So it
yeah,
says, yeah, the right
I
spelling.
know it's
That's
backwards,
okay.
guys.
I
Sorry.
know what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out though, Ray, because yeah, what you guys are
It's
seeing is the
reverse.
opposite.
Yeah.
But this final one, I'm going to read it because obviously you won't be able to backwards. But I have a lot of design ideas, and all these shirts are available, but will be more available for a little bit cheaper once I get the website done, because I've got to get the shop done. But these are just samples just to show you guys I'm working on it. So this one says, if you don't see two seahorses kissing, we can't be friends. And
Aw.
it's just, because if you look at it, it does kind of, if you're not seeing seahorses, you almost see a bull, or a horn.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know.
could see
Anyways,
something else. Yeah,
just
yeah,
want to be cute. So,
yeah.
anyways, just telling you guys, I'm getting serious about it. We've got our member shirts now.
Sweet, sweet. And I see Cheryl can join us if somebody sends her a link to join live. She can with her
Yeah.
headlamp on while she's milking goats. So that would be cool.
Well, Holly, you're the one in contact with her. Can you send her a link?
I'm not really. I'll have to figure out how to do
So
it.
anytime
But I think
I'll,
I can find
okay,
her in the
I'm gonna put this link in the chat, but anytime you need it, you can just go to the bottom where we have our camera and such. And when you see the little person, if you press on that little person button, it gives you the invite link. But
I
I'll put it in
have
our chat.
the link. I just have to
Okay.
find her in Facebook. So
Okay. All right.
on
Well,
so it'll give me a minute.
okay. And while she's working on that, Ray, anything new with you? Anything going on with you?
No, nothing new.
Gotcha. And if you've addressed this recently, I'll watch, but otherwise I don't mind to jump on. I can milk with my headlamp. Right. Okay. Well, guys, it's open chat. So start off with questions or I'm going to start rambling and we don't want that. Right. I will start off until we do get a question. Okay. Hey, Sophie, jump in. Do you still have the link or do we need to get it to you? Ray, can you get the link to her?
I'll send her the link on her email.
Okay. And like I said, guys, ask any questions you have or want to ask, but we will also absolutely do an episode so that I can tag it for future people to watch. But there's no problem with jumping in now and asking for sure. Hey, Aqua Balls, how are you?
Okay, so Cheryl, look for a
Hey, we
link
got our
in your messenger I just sent to Cheryl. So you
just showing
might
Aqua
have to
Balls. We got
accept it.
our shirts. We got our shirts. Here's the back of it, Aqua Balls. Oh, if I could find it, I threw them
And
all over
Sophie
here.
wants to jump on too. She has a
Yeah,
few questions. So
Ray's sending her the link. Actually, you know what? Actually, Holly, do you have anything to talk about? Because I can get Sophie the link quicker through Messenger.
well
I
got it to Cheryl.
Okay.
So I don't have really too much right now on the seahorses. Today was water change day for everybody. And I did notice my girl Sadie, who has tail bubbles off and on from time to time, she's got a tail bubble right now.
Uh-oh.
And I got rid of the volcano for now because I found out it was trapping detritus underneath. So I'm hoping that will help. Sadie's 4 years old now. I don't plan on really at this point ever putting her in a hospital tank, unless it's really dire circumstances. So I'm gonna decrease my feeding and up water change protocol in the tank that they're in and try to handle it that way. And
So
and
let's
just
back up.
let her be.
So
Basically.
let's just back up a little bit. What do you mean by a tail bubble for someone who doesn't know what you mean?
So, one thing that happens to seahorses is they're prone to bacterial infections, external and internal. And one of the signs that they will show externally is with like a bubble in their skin. It looks like a pimple for a human. And a lot of times it's usually on their tail. It'll look like they have a pimple on their tail or a little bubble. Generally, the bacterial infections are caused by high organics in their water. And so normally putting them into a hospital tank with clean, fresh salt water that you change out, every day or so is a good remedy for that. There's antibiotics is another treatment for that. Um, I've treated a lot of seahorses in the hospital tank for bacterial infections over the years. And at the age my seahorses now, they're getting older, and the hospital tank is always kind of a depressing, stressful place for them. So usually now I'm at a point where if I start to notice that something's coming on, I prefer to deal with it in the main tank and just increase my husbandry protocol,
And
like with bigger water changes.
well, and I love the fact that you said you realized that the volcano was collecting detritus underneath it and could possibly be part of the problem and removed it. So it's
Yeah,
figuring things out like that that really help.
and they're getting fed. I've been home a lot. They're getting fed more often, and I tend to overfeed. So, I mean, there's things I know because I've had them for a while. There's things that I know I can do to kind of make things, a better environment for them when they're showing signs that something's wrong. And I'm also at the point too where they're probably at least half their lifespan or more at this point.
Hmm.
So I'd rather not deal with hospital tanks now. Like I said, unless it's a really serious situation, I'd rather be proactive and correct things in the actual tank
For
that
all
they
of
live
them.
in.
Well, and I would say, while many might disagree with that statement, it is all about choice, right?
Mhm,
As a seahorse keeper, you have choices, and
mhm,
what you choose to do is what you choose to do. So I don't disagree with your thoughts, especially because the age of your seahorses, how long you've kept them, that you know them very well. And has
mhm,
has Sadie, and I do want to welcome Cheryl. Sorry,
mhm,
Cheryl. But hi, we're gonna get to you in 1 second. But last
mhm.
question for Holly: has she gotten tail bubbles before and they've gone away just with simple maintenance?
Yes, and
Okay.
actually, right before you came to visit, she had some tail bubbles going on, and they disappeared over the course of the week that you were here
Wow.
because they didn't get fed as much, I think. Because I was only
Because
feeding
I was
like one time
distracting
a
you.
day. We were gone all the time. So I'm kind of like, okay, we'll cut down on the feeding, bigger water changes, make sure everything's getting siphoned out, and more clean water, less food, and hopefully it'll correct itself over
Well,
time.
and while I know Ray is probably biting his tongue because Ray
Yeah.
is all about hospital tank, but the thing is, this is, oh no, did we lose her? I think we got Sophie and we lost Cheryl. Damn it. Cheryl, come back, come back. Just click the link again. I'm sorry I didn't let you speak yet. But I would say too that this is something to be said for, fixing the tank, fixing the husbandry
'Cause
might
that's
make all the
the cause of
difference in the world. And we got Sophie with us. Hi, Sophie.
it.
So you picked
Hey.
up so you picked up the tank today, right?
Yeah, and I started cleaning it.
And I bet that's not fun at all, right?
It's
That's an
quite a bit of
understatement.
work, but I'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
That's
Oh,
right.
there we
That
got
That's
tank's
Cheryl.
right.
been set up for a lot of years.
Yeah, I mean it's been a seahorse tank, and it's gonna do an amazing job for you. You gave her everything, right, Ray? The whole system.
Yeah, I'll give her that whole system and then some stuff out of some of the decor and that, the hitching stuff, so that she can have a choice of what to do.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
thank you.
All right. Well, since Cheryl joined first and then we lost her and she came back, Cheryl, what questions do you have for us to start us off?
I have all the questions. So I bought
Okay.
a used 75 gallon that's previously been a saltwater tank. I've never had saltwater before. I bought this with the exclusive goal of having seahorses. This is kind of a crazy story. I'm 65 now. I live in central Arkansas. When I was, I don't know, 10, 11 years old, you could buy seahorses in the mail because there wasn't
Yeah.
internet then.
The
I
dwarfs.
kept
Yeah.
seahorses in a regular, I don't know, it might have been, it's been a minute, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
maybe a 20 gallons freshwater aquarium. I guess I added salt to it. I don't know. They had babies and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing. So now, and you know, I was a little kid. So now I'm like, oh my goodness, whatever I was doing back then, I know wasn't all this involved. And now I'm kind of intimidated because the more I look at, the more confused I get. And this tank came with a ton, almost a literal ton of what I assume used to be live rock. And now I guess you would call it dry live rock because it's been
Mhm.
out of the water for a couple of months. Well, now I'm thinking, don't even use any of that because the more stuff that I look at, it says it comes with little hitchhikers and all this stuff. I want to go, and I saw a comment that Ray made to somebody about being minimalist. And that's fine with me. I bought a couple of 10-pound bags of live sand, and now I'm thinking, don't even use that. Just go, because I want it to be as safe and as safe for them and as simple for me to keep it safe for them as possible. So I'm thinking bare bottom, not even bring in any live, you know, corals or gorgolians or whatever you call them. I think they're great and pretty and everything, but the more risk that there is, I'm like you, Seahorse Whisperers. Your first name Kelly.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I mean, I want to keep my risk as low as possible to make their, you know, to make it as safe for them as possible, and me having a learning curve. So I'm thinking seahorses and snails only, with artificial little things for them to hitch to. And so that's where I am. I've got a reverse osmosis water filter on my sink, so I can. And the tank came with salt water. It came with accessories and some lights. They seem too bright to me, probably for what seahorses would like, but I think they're adjustable and I can probably turn those down. I just need to play with them.
Mhm.
So that's where I am. I haven't even cleaned out the tank yet because I didn't even know what would be the
So-
best, safest thing to use.
So I don't mean to cut you off, but there's like 3 or 4 things that we can jump on in what you just said. Okay. So first off, I want Ray to talk a little bit because I'll be honest, and I know, like, obviously you've seen some of the videos or heard me talk, because I am someone who likes to play it safe and likes to make sure the seahorses are the main point, right? I don't keep other fish with them, but other people do. There's other ways to do things. It's all about choice. But Ray, why do you think that bare bottom, like she said, is the best? Let's just go with bare bottom at first. Why don't you like sand, or do you like sand?
I'm not partial to it. As a matter of fact, the only sand I've ever had in a seahorse tank out of all those years was one that I basically put a baking dish in, and I put the substrate in there so I could put mackerel in it. Just an experiment I had. And then when Sophie came to pick up the tank today, I had need of the baking dish one time, so I dumped all the sand into the tank. But by this time, like, I had no more seahorses left anyway, so
Right.
it didn't matter. It was me being lazy. I took the baking dish out, and the easiest way was just to dump
Dump it
out
in there.
the
Sure.
substrate and leave it in the tank.
Right,
Now,
right. Hey,
now
I
Sophie
want
has
to
to
say,
deal with it.
was poor Sophie. I wanted to say to Sophie and Cheryl, if you guys do have to jump out because, you know, you guys have lives and everything, that's totally fine. You can always come back next week if you don't get your question answered, because we do got to jump from person to person. And I want to give you both the time that is deserved. But I just wanted to say, if you have to jump out, feel free. But Holly,
Well,
what
the
are
main
your
reason,
thoughts?
though, for
Okay.
no substrate is that it's so
Yes.
much easier to keep the tank clean. And
Okay.
keeping the tank clean, well, actually, it's keeping the water clean, which means keeping the tank clean to help that endeavor. Um, the biggest problem with seahorses is their susceptibility to pathogens, nasty bacteria, and that explode exponentially with temperatures above 74. but also when dissolved organic levels are rising. And we don't know absolutely for sure that it's the dissolved organics, but it is something. It's either the dissolved organics or it's something that is related to it that rises at the same time as the DO. And unfortunately, there are no test kits for hobbyists to be able to check for DO. So we are left with doing preventative type husbandry and water changes and so on, and watching for signs all the time that it may not be enough. Um, you can never do too much, but it's quite easy to not do enough.
So
And
with sand in particular, though, why do you think sand?
well,
Why do you
because
think?
so much of the detritus will settle into that sand, and you can mitigate it to a certain extent by doing the gravel vacuuming. But uh, in my experience, too many people that had the substrate start off with good intentions, but I think they're a lot like me. I'm basically a very lazy person,
Right.
and
Mhm.
so there are things that I know I can't do because at some point in time I'm going to let it slip.
I'm
Gotcha.
convinced. I'm
Brent,
convinced no sand. So
Well,
I'm not
wait,
going to
wait,
use
wait,
that.
wait, wait, wait. Hang on. So I want to give Holly a chance to answer too. And I would say, I want to be very clear. I've kept both. I've
Mhm.
kept, and I love rock. Every single one of my tanks has rock. It's just not live rock, right? It's rock that I have cleaned,
Sure.
recycled, and then used because I like the look of a natural scape. So all of my tanks have rock. I just wanted to clarify that. And with the sand, I've kept multiple sanded tanks. I will agree with Ray that keeping a more natural tank, it's about the whole picture, right? And that's really hard to say in one little sentence because it's not just because if you're going to go bare bottom and no rock, then you have to compensate for all of your biological bacteria and all of your I can't think of the word now, all of your
Biofilter.
filter
The
in the sump
biofilter.
or in
I
another
have to
way.
jump in here. I'm a no substrate, but as you know, all of my tanks, all I had was rock. That was the total biological filter.
Yep.
But I preferred most of it in the sump because the rock in the tank tends to make the seahorses go dark.
Truth, truth. And Holly, I did want to give you a chance to answer, and then I promise I'll let you ask your next question, Cheryl. But Holly, like, why did you choose to go bare bottom and artificial?
Much easier maintenance. The thing is about bare bottom is that when there's uneaten food, you can see it all. And sand tends to disguise it. It gets mixed in. Now I have two tanks. I have a 75 and a 55 gallon. My 75 is Seahorse only, and I have no substrate. It's a bare bottom tank, all artificial decor in that tank. In my 55 gallon, I also have a goby and I have a small crab in that tank. So I actually keep a patch of sand for them that the
Yep.
goby little hiding cave sits on that sand. And I found it easy to maintain that little patch of sand. I vacuum it once a week when I'm doing my water change, and I haven't had any trouble with it. But it's much easier to see detritus in a bare bottom tank. And I think had I gone back, when I was a beginner, I actually started with a less simple tank. I started with rock and some corals and the seahorses and some other things living in that tank and substrate. And I think for a beginner who's really just interested in the seahorses and wants things as simple and easy to take care of as possible, I think really bare bottom is the way to go.
So
It,
The
with that
last two,
learning curve, I think, to where you got to make sure after they eat, all the detritus is removed, everything that they didn't eat. And
sure.
I think that having a bare bottom just makes it easier to see
So
what.
the two things I would say, because I want to be clear, we haven't really heard from Sophie yet. And so I want to say for anybody out there who's wanting to, I think Zen Ginger really wants to do a more natural tank. But Zen Ginger understands saltwater already. I mean, or she's a freshwater enthusiast and understands chemistry. Okay. Once you're to that point, there is something to be said for keeping a truly natural tank, but you have to understand it. Like, you can't just throw rock and sand in and expect it just to work. You have to
It's just more
understand
work.
that it is more work. But like in my case, in my tank right now, I'm able to slack off a bit because I've got macros in there that are kind of doing some of the work for me. There are ways around everything, but it sounds to me like Cheryl wants to start a tank that, like when I first started, I'm really specific. I was really specific to just seahorses, concentrating on them, making it work for them. But in that type of tank, if you're not using rock and you're not using sand, you got to have a real serious plan for your filtration. So go on, Cheryl, with your talking and questions and what you plan to do.
Okay, well, listening to Holly brought up a couple of questions and something you said about rock. If you have sand in there, do you have it in a container to keep it in place?
I don't, honestly, because the spot that I have it in is a lower flow area. It's a cave where it's an artificial cave is what it is that I found on Amazon. And my goby fish likes to hang out in there. And that's
Okay.
his little sand pit. And what I found is it really doesn't go anywhere. The sand will not blow around unless you have flow directed at it, is
Okay.
what I found. And
And then
so in some tanks, it depends on how your flow is. You might need a container for it, like Ray said, a dish or something if you're just making a small sand area. But in my tank, it's in a spot where it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay. And then something Kelly said about using rock that wasn't live rock. And I think she said cycling that. So if it's not like, what kind of, is it just a rock like you pick up in a creek outside, or what kind of rock?
No. So I've used man-made rock and I've used live rock that basically, we did a whole episode with, who was it, guys? I'm so bad with names. Anyways, we did a whole episode about curing rock, but basically you can
Salty Reef was it?
Yeah, Salty Reef, right. And I'm not an expert on curing rock. I have to go back and watch that video. I haven't had to cure rock in so long. Like, I'd hate to sit here and say, this is how you do it. So there's a video on it. But basically, it's about letting the rock sit for so long in the dark,
and
feeding the rock and basically making sure there's nothing live in it anymore.
You gotta kill everything on it, so it has to go through like bleach cycles, like in a bleach bucket for days, and then you rinse it off, like thoroughly rinse it, let it dry, put it back in the bleach. I think when Salty Reef did our thing about it, I think it was like 3 cycles through bleaching, rinsing, and drying. Because what happens is if you don't kill everything that's in those rocks, and they're hard to kill, they'll come back years later and make new life.
Right.
Okay. So I can go, it's if I look up Seahorse Whisperer, Salty Reef, or Curing Rock, it should pop up for me in YouTube.
Zen might be able to find that video for us, maybe, if she's available right now. She might put a link in the description. But I would also say that, you guys know I'm a very careful person, but there's always little shortcuts. I trust Salty Reef's definition of it for sure, but there's also man-made rock you can buy. And I feel like like Holly said, just drying out rock does not mean that Aptasia's not still in it and such. But I will completely admit that I've taken that gamble before. If I've either bleached rock or dried it out completely, I have then used it. I've had problems with it sometimes and sometimes not. If you want to make sure you have no problems, then yes, go through that video and listen to how you bleach, rinse, dry, bleach,
And
rinse,
I
dry.
think,
Yeah.
you can find online how to cure your rock, but
Yes.
the main thing is, especially because like Kelly, she has rock already, so she probably wants to use it. So
Yes.
I'd say I've done my rock and not reused it, but the way I did it was I put it into a bleach solution bucket and left it in there for like a few days. Rinsed it, set it outside in the summer, to dry. I would do that. I mean, I don't know. I haven't used it since, but I would say maybe if you did that a couple times, you might be good. The important part is you really want to make sure it's thoroughly rinsed and then really dry after putting
Yes.
it through the bleach process, because it's the drying that evaporates the bleach chemicals.
The
So
other
hot
thing
days,
is
perfect.
the other thing is I always added a step of letting it soak in prime. So prime is
Okay.
something. Yeah,
Before you use it.
you already
Yeah,
know what prime is. Okay,
probably
good.
probably smart.
I saw
Um,
I saw
I
something
gave
that you
Sophie some
talked about using Prime.
Quorum X that she can use for neutralizing if she chooses that route.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, and but like in that case, and that's the hard part, is for Sophie, anything that you gave her, I would trust. I wouldn't do
Yeah.
anything to it, you know? So unfortunately, like with Cheryl, we don't know where she got the tank, and she said it was a reef situation, so we
Mhm.
don't know what critters are in there or what bacteria is in
Critters
there,
living.
stuff. So she might need to, but if I was Sophie, I wouldn't do anything. I'd use the rock if she chooses to use rock because it came from Ray. Right?
Okay,
So
so
that's the hard part. Go ahead,
you
Cheryl.
feel like I could cycle this through bleach, do the whole drying, soak it in Prime, and then after that, cycle it in the tank. So would I wait until I get my rock all finished and then put it in the tank and cycle all of it together?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and at that point, then my rock acts like a biologic filter, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so what else besides that cleaned rock would you suggest that I do next?
So
As I'm
Robert
cycling the
King
tank.
actually joined us, and I would say one of the things we really like for Seahorse tanks is a Robert King chamber. It's not a necessity. We're going to go into the necessities, but I just thought I'd throw it out because I saw he joined. So the Robert King chamber, the reason I like it is because it kind of acts like a carbon, but better. It acts like a carbon and a biological media. It has a sponge filter that is pulling stuff in, and the seahorses just happen to love it. They hitch on it. They love the bubbles coming up, and they love to sleep on it. But that's something that me and Holly do. Ray never used it, doesn't need it, but I would say it's something I would absolutely say to look into. So let's go through that, guys. When someone's starting a new seahorse tank, aside from something like a Robert King chamber, which I would say is important but is not a necessity, what are the necessities for a tank if it has rock? So again, there's
Well,
a
you got to
difference.
think about your filtration. Like, do you have a sump? What other kind of
What
filtration?
other kind of filtration?
It's not drilled for a sump. It came with a hang-on back.
Okay. So,
Hang on back.
Excuse me?
Hang on back.
wait,
We're getting some
something's going
feedback.
on.
Yeah, I was just say our sound's really bad.
Something happened with Cheryl's feedback. Hopefully she'll come back, but we can keep the conversation going. She can always watch later. So go ahead, Ray.
I've forgotten my train of thought now.
You said a
We're
hang-on back
talking about
filter.
hang on back.
A hang on back filter. It's not the be all and the end all, but it's better than nothing. As long as you clean it, the filter trap, the material that traps the crap, minimum twice a week.
Okay.
And it's better than using a canister filter, because for people like me that tend to be lazy, a canister filter is a pain in the ass to clean out, so you tend to put off doing it when you know you should put it off, and that leads to trouble. So never ever
Whereas that
recommend.
on the back, you see the stuff and you see how bad it looks, and it's more likely
With
to get.
a hang on back, that works great. Now, my personal favorite is the power heads with a quick filter attachment because they're so darn easy to clean out. You take it out, you take the whatever you're using for the filter material inside, you throw it in the laundry tub, and you blast it with the hose set on a jet setting, and clean it, let it dry, and you just change it out. You put some one that's already cleaned, you put it in, and while the other one's drying, the other one's back in service right away. Like you can just take it right out of the filter, put the cleaned one in, take the other one out. You don't even have to clean it right away because you've had the already previously cleaned one sitting there drying, and you just use it just on a quick change. So it's something that you can do just.
So I love the quick filters too, and I think it's great advice. But what I'm trying to get to first, before we go into, I shouldn't have mentioned the Robert King chamber because that's something I like, and I
Yeah,
think
it's
works for my
extra.
tank. But let's talk about the necessity. Like, is there an equation? Okay, if I have this many seahorses, I need this much K1 media, or I need this much
I
of this type of filtrate. That's what I think it comes down to is how do I keep my seahorses safe by providing enough filtration? How do you figure that out?
And I would say I have to disagree with Ray on the hang on back being enough for a 75 gallon.
Okay.
It's I to me
Well, it
I
depends on the size of the hang on the back.
yeah.
The thing
Well,
is,
I
that's
haven't
not the, that's I'm talking about it being used for mechanical filtration, not as the biological filter.
yeah, I would say it's something good to have. I would think of it as an extra,
Okay.
honestly, because I mean, for me, I have a 75 gallon and I've got a sump that holds it's I would say it's a 20-30 gallon sump, which means it holds actually 15 gallons of water because it's not all the way full, right? But in that I have a huge skimmer, a protein skimmer, which I feel is really important, filter socks, and my biomedia is in there.
So
And when I've had my tank go down for a while, because if you remember right, I had a tank that broke that was
mhm.
roughly the same size, and I didn't have the overflows. You know, it had a built-in overflow. So when I got my new tank, it didn't have built-in overflow. It had hang-on back overflow. And to supplement while I was waiting for the new overflow boxes to come, I used a canister built filter, which was pretty good size. And honestly, it wasn't enough.
so
And
so
I
my
don't know how big of hang on backs you can buy, but you'd have to think, I would think, have one that could hold several gallons to be adequate filtration
or
for
use multiple or use multiple. So the first question, Cheryl, is there any opportunity to add a sump? I know it's not drilled, but what Holly was just saying and what I did with my 65 gallon is you can get an overflow box
it
that
leads
turns
to
your
the sump.
tank into a tank that can have a sump. You don't have to drill it. Like
Okay.
is there space for something like that, or are you just against it? And you can be against it.
I'm not against it. I just don't know how to go about it. And
Okay.
as far as space, I mean, I haven't situated it yet.
Okay.
So I guess theoretically there's space because I can make space for
Right.
Uh-huh.
it. And there it sits on a stand that was custom built for it. So it's like a cabinet, I mean, I could put anything under there.
Mhm.
So
Um,
I'll tell you, when I first started with seahorses, I started with a 29 gallon tank. I put in too many seahorses, And then everything was great for about 8 months. And then I started to have trouble because I couldn't do enough maintenance, and my hang on back equipment wasn't enough, like Holly was saying. And I ended up adding a sump in the way that I'm describing, where you get an overflow box. I wish I could just grab one to show you, but basically it sits on the edge of the tank, and then it takes the water down into a sump. It does cost more to set this up, because then you're talking about buying a pump, but then you have room for a skimmer, for K1 media maybe, or whatever other biological filtration you want. I mean, I agree with Holly. It's always better to have a sump if you can. I also agree with Ray, because I have pulled it off in tanks with hang on back, but long term, it's harder. And in the case where I had hang on back tanks, they were much smaller. So in a 75, I'm gonna trust Holly's thoughts that, hang on back, you'd need 2 at least. And then you don't have a skimmer unless you buy a hang on the back skimmer. And before you invest in all this hang on the back stuff, I would say let's look into an overflow box with a sump underneath. It really does make all the difference.
I just think it'll be a lot easier. It'll leave you more room for error, especially if you're a beginner starting out. You need really, I think, more filtration than you think. Most of us do with Seahorses. It's if I could go back in time, when I first started, all my stuff was hang on back and a small sump, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for my inexperience.
Sure.
And that's where I am now, is
scary as they seem. Once I switched over, it's actually easier.
Right. The setting up of the sump seems like this
seems daunting.
But once it's set up, it makes your life so much easier. So I would agree with that Cheryl, if you're able, let's look into an overflow box and getting like a 20-gallon or whatnot tank to sit underneath in that cabinet. I can help you on the side, or we can try to go through it live. I wish I could just pull the equipment, but it's still running. You know what? Actually, I think I do have an overflow.
And I was going to say, I can carry my computer over kind of and show you the way I have. And mine is not even under the tank. Mine sits in an L shape because the sump is too big to fit under. So
I do want to say, for anybody watching in the future, and for Cheryl, that Holly's tank was plumbed by her husband, but you can absolutely buy tanks that are already plumbed. Okay, go ahead, Holly.
I don't know. Can you see? Because I'm using the computer, so I don't know if the camera is showing it. That's an overflow box.
Can you back up and show us from the front? There we go. So that's an overflow box. It just sits on the side of the tank.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah. All right. So it's plumbed, so all the water comes down here. This is a sump. And sorry, it's not pretty.
Right.
But basically, it holds all my water, biomedia, and equipment in there. Can you see okay, Kelly?
Yes. Yeah, you did good. But that overflow box is really the point where, you can take a tank that can't be drilled. Maybe it's already full of water. Like in my case, my tank had Seahorses in it, and I wanted to add a sump, and I can't drill it, and whatever. Then you can just buy this overflow box, and what? It's already like in my Oh, we're having feedback again.
Echoing.
Cheryl, come back again. All right. So, but
I think she was saying it looks complicated.
Okay.
And it kind of seems like it, but honestly, I would say the two. We're still.
Yeah, something's going on with Cheryl's. Sorry, hang on. Try to come back, Cheryl. All right, go ahead.
So I think the thing to do is get either somebody that's familiar with plumbing, how plumbing works, like an actual plumber, or somebody who has experience with plumbing fish tanks to help you set it up. My husband does construction. He's a finish carpenter and he's not a plumber, but he knows enough about it and how things work that he was able to plumb my tank for me and to where water would come out and make it back into the tank, which is what you're trying to. And
So,
if you know anybody who's handy like that, or have a local fish store that has maybe people who are used to doing tanks, can help you set up. Once you have the right equipment, they can help you set it up to where it works right. I couldn't do
so
it myself.
I'm gonna say
Some
I just
people
need
do.
I need to set up a day, Cheryl, where you can join us on a Wednesday again, and I can get Salty Reef or any of our friends in here because
Show how to plumb a
I'm
tank.
not very good at the plumbing of the tanks either, but they
Mhm.
helped me through every single one of them. It
Mhm.
does seem complicated, but it's really not. And
It's
once it's
really
done,
not. It's
it's done.
mostly not trusting yourself because you're like, oh my God, the water's going to flow here, then it's going to overflow and flood my house. And
But
how
it
am I going
doesn't.
to get the rate of the water to go back into the tank at the same it's going out? But if you get like an adjustable pump to pump it back in, there's ones like mine has like an adjuster where you can control the speed of the pump and everything. And it really wasn't hard, but it helped having my husband, who I trust with that do it yourself kind of stuff, there to kind of be the, I would say, okay, it's going to be okay. You're not going to flood the house. We're going to adjust it. So
But I
it
didn't
can
have
be
that.
done. It's not that hard. It
I
really
was gonna
isn't.
say I didn't have a plumber in my life that could
And you did
back me
it,
up.
right?
I did it, and I've
Yeah.
had some bad situations, but I've had a lot of good situations, and it really is just like Googling adding on a sump with with an overflow, and it's that simple. Like, we can schedule a time for someone to come in and walk you through it for sure. I have no problem with that, but you can also just Google it. It seems complicated, I know, but again, it's not. And once you're done, you'll be so happy you did it. Ray, you wanted to say a little bit more about hang on backs. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a little hard getting in on you girls
I
sometimes.
know we overtalk each other. I know.
But anyway, I want to get back on this hang on back. As I understand it, Cheryl, you already have a hang on back with the system you got? Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir, I do.
You don't
You
need
don't
to.
need to.
Okay,
Okay.
real quick, what I'm going to say is, Cheryl, can you mute yourself while he's talking? Because for some reason it's echoing. Or I can do it. Here we go. I'll unmute you when you want to speak. Let me get it. Let's see. Where is it at?
I think she may have did it.
I think you already
Okay,
muted it
go
yourself.
for it. Go for it, Ray.
Okay. Now, you already have this system, and if you're a little hesitant about hang on the back overflows, they're not for everybody, but it's a 75-gallon tank. You still can get by quite well. Use the hang on back filter as a filter, not as biological filtration, as a mechanical filter. Okay, and clean it out, the filter pads minimum twice a week. Now, because you have a 75-gallon tank, you do have the ability to set it up without a sump if that's going to be a bit too complicated to get you started, and until you learn more about these overflows. So I can't expound on K1 media or anything like that because I've never ever used anything but live rock or cured rock, whatever. But the rock itself, you can put that in the tank and use that. You cycle that after it's cured, and then that'll be your biological filter, and you can use that hang on the back. Plus, you can use other things like power heads with quick filter attachments, or anything that can try to give you more flow in the tank itself. You want a minimum of 10 times the flow in the tank. In other words, a 40-gallon tank, you want 400 gallons minimum flow per hour. And most of us with long-term experience are in the 20s, not just the 10 time. So you can do it just with what you have, just by adding something to get more flow, making sure also though, if you have a quick filter attachment on it, that's great because they're easy to clean and so on, and it keeps the Seahorse from getting sucked up on it. But if you put in a power head or wave maker or anything like that, in order to boost your flow rate in the tank, make sure that if it doesn't have a quick filter on it, that you're going to put some protection on that intake. But like I say, you can do this just with that hang-on back filter to use for water motion and to use it for trapping the uneaten food and detritus. But you're going to need more than that to get the amount of circulation that you need in there. But again, like you don't have to go with the overflow if it's too confusing for you.
So let me back this up.
One more thing. I'd like to find out how I can send some links to her.
I mean, if you put it in our chat, I'll post them live. How's that?
Well, I copy it and paste it because I put the same thing all the time, like in the like Seahorse source or anything like that. When people are posting, I put I post this. I just copy and paste it. It's basically the same thing all the time because for me to try and remember individually to be able to type it all out every time is a bit of a pain.
Oh God, and that's fine. And that's another thing, you can just post it in the
group. You want to hang on back skimmer? So
wait, time out. Ray, please, time out 1 second. Because I think for anybody watching this, they're going to be like, holy crap, they've gone from left to right to up to down and everything's everywhere. So let me just bring it back in and then I will let you speak, I promise. But I just want to be clear.
To do the other if it's confusing.
There's I'm usually the one confusing, absolutely. But there's different ways to do a Seahorse tank, absolutely. And I just want to be clear that what we're talking about is, first of all, natural versus artificial. So if you have a natural tank that has rock and maybe sand or whatnot, and you're using macros and you're going that route, then in my opinion, a sump is not as necessary because you're not trying to compensate for what you don't have in the tank. If you have an artificial tank like Holly's that has only, artificial, no rock, no sand, nothing in there that's providing beneficial bacteria or the biological bacteria,
in my sump.
You have to have a sump. You can't do otherwise. So when Cheryl came on and she was talking about, I don't want sand, I don't really want rock. We talked about the rock and maybe she does use the rock. But even when you're using rock, I still feel like you need a bit more. Ray is not wrong. You can pull it off if you're using rock and maybe sand as your biological filtration. You can use hang on back as your mechanical filtration. We're going to get into Cheryl's next question about a skimmer in just a minute, because that's the real point, is that if you're doing natural and using rock and such, in my opinion, you have to know ahead of time that you are the filtration, right? You have to do massive water changes. You have to make sure every piece of uneaten food is gotten. The reason that people like Holly and I like sumps is because then you've got this big ass skimmer doing a lot of the work for you. You've got socks collecting detritus for you. You've got K1 maybe doing the biological for you, and you're doubling up. Even if you've got rock in the tank, you're doubling up your biological so that you never have to worry about that if you have to miss a water change, or if you don't want to make, 50 gallons of water every week or whatnot. I'm just saying it's all based on choices, but I wanted to be clear. Neither way is wrong. It's what you're willing to do for the seahorses. If you're willing to do those massive water changes and you'd rather not mess with the sump, yeah, you can. I've done it. I've kept a tank with no sump. Hang on back. We'll talk about skimmers in a minute. But I had to do a lot more work. I was in that tank every single day, trying to, get off.
And see, my experience, it was hard for me as a beginner to take care of the tank with rock because it trapped the detritus. I wasn't able to get to it. And there's a learning curve, I think, when you're a beginner about learning how much is enough flow and where to direct it and how much to feed and all. And
the more filtration you
rock
have, the
just
better off
made
you'll
it
be.
harder, I think, for me. And that's why I ended up getting rid of all my rock, going completely artificial, and having my filtration all in the sump is just because with the kind of schedule I had with work and all that, it was harder for me maintaining that reef style rock look and keeping the seahorses healthy than it is now, where I keep everything really clean with a sponge. Everything that's dirty goes into the bleach bucket. I can see if there's stuff floating around that I need to remove. I have, like Ray said, I have quick filters in the tank to help provide extra filtration. I've got the Robert King chambers. I just think, because I'm a beginner too, really, with seahorses. I'm a few years in now, but this is my first time successfully keeping them. And what I've learned over the years for me is the simpler, the better.
But we have to be fair and say there's like I'm currently doing macros and rock. Like there's no wrong way. You're taking Holly's opinion and what works for her, and you're hearing mine and you're hearing Ray's. And I know that can be confusing. That's why I wanted to bring it back to the basics and just say it's A or B. There's all this in between, of course, but you just have the real understanding is that if you want to go artificial, you got to do all the biological, mechanical, and even chemical filtration in a different way. If you're going to use rock and or sand, you still need to consider how big the tank is, having enough filtration is the key. And how much work you want to do is the other question. So Cheryl, you did ask then, what about a skimmer? And that's one of the things that our Cheryl that used to come on as an expert used to say, is that hang on back skimmers are right. I don't know if they've made some good ones now. I really don't know.
I never had luck with mine. I had to empty it several times a day.
So
it would fail so quickly.
So that's another benefit to having a sump, is one of the things that Dan Underwood, who is Seahorse, Seahorse Source, excuse me, and he's no longer in business, but when he was the Seahorse person, his main advice was get an oversized skimmer. Get an oversized skimmer. It will save you so much heartache. It will save you so much time. It'll save you so much everything. And the only way you can really do, like I have in my all-in-one tank, I don't have a sump, right? I'm not against doing those types of tanks. But in my all-in-one tank, the biggest skimmer that I could find that would work for that tank was only times and a half. What I mean by that is the tank is 40 gallons. The biggest skimmer I could find was rated for 60 gallons. The recommendation for seahorses, if you have a 40-gallon tank, is a skimmer rated for 80 gallons. So 2 times, right? So minimum, right? So in my case, I'm having to do a lot more work because in this tank without a sump, the only skimmer I could find is not rated high enough for what I need. So is it still helping? Yes. Am I making the tank work? Yes. Is it more work? Yes. So it comes down to, and I saw in your comments that you guys are handy. Ray is not wrong. If you want to do the work yourself, the water changes using flow to make sure that all that detritus gets into that mechanical filtration that you're using, and use rock, yes, you can do it. I'm still going to go back to, if I were you, I'd add a sump because you can put an
It's just
overrated
easier,
skimmer in
much
there. We can talk about K1 and how to use that. You just have all these backups on backups so that it's not all on you. If you get sick and you can't do water changes for a week, if something happens, the tank doesn't go to poo because of you, kind of thing. Go ahead, Ray. We'll argue it out. Come on.
No, it's not argumentative. It's alternatives.
Okay.
The skimmers primarily are meant as a filtration of dissolved organics, which are very problematic. The alternative, or the problem with them, is they're, first of all, the room that you need to get one large enough sometimes, but also they are very expensive to buy. The alternative is to go with carbon, which you can use a smaller carbon reactor that will fit in just about any sump. The problem with it is not the expense to get into it, it's the expense of the carbon down the road. One additional advantage that comes from it, though, is the carbon will remove some dissolved organics that a skimmer cannot remove. And ideally, if you used a combination of both, if you're rich enough to be able to handle that stuff, but one or the other. Like if you don't have the room for the sump, or you don't have the initial money for an outlay, because when you get into one like for 75, you're looking at a minimum 150 capacity
Wait,
type.
what are you talking about? Is going to cost all this money? What's going to cost?
A skimmer for a 75
Oh,
Seahorse tank is very
yeah.
expensive. And
Sure.
I don't know what the price is in the States there, but here in Canada, it's well over $1,000. And some of them that I've seen around here are almost $3,000 just
For
in that
skimmer?
size category. Yeah.
Mine's a couple hundred off
Yeah,
Amazon.
no.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm sending you my stuff, Cheryl.
And
But anyway, carbon is an alternative. And as I said, and this is from Randy Holmes Farley, scientist that got into reef chemistry, helped a lot of people out. He says that the carbon will remove some dissolved organics that can't be removed with skimmer.
But did he ever say that it should be used in replace of a skimmer?
No, he said you can use one or the other, just that the advantage of the carbon was that it'd do more.
Wow. I mean, that, Dan would disagree with that. That. He would absolutely.
Well, Dan doesn't have the pedigree that Randy Holmes Farley has. He's a scientist.
Fair enough. But Dan was literally working with seahorses. Randy Holmes Farley, excuse me, was, across the board scientist working on water chemistry, right? So I'm not arguing with either one of them, right, guys? They both know way more than I do. And I would say if you can't do a sump with a skimmer or get a skimmer that's rated 2 times your tank size, then absolutely look at using carbon, because at least as Ray is saying, it's an alternative. We're trying to show. It's really difficult. This is why I struggle so much with the website, guys, is there's no one way, right?
And there's so many different tools to use. And honestly, I'll say this: if you are lacking in equipment, or you find what you're doing is not enough, the alternative is just water changes.
Yeah,
it's just hard labor. I mean, back when I was raising my juveniles, I didn't have a tank big enough for them. I didn't have the filtration they needed or any of that, because I just was unprepared for raising seahorses. So they ended up, a bunch of them, in a 29-gallon tank with a hang-on back filter. And it wasn't adequate for them. I had to change their water every single day. Did they survive? Yes, they did well, but it was a lot of hard work for me, and going through a lot of salt. But yeah, you can do it. All these other things, filtration, extra filtration and things, it just makes it easier.
Well, and again,
If you
back
could
to the,
give them brand new water every single day of their lives, then
Yep.
that's fine. But
when
who
we
wants
talk
to do
about
that?
when we talk about fry tanks, Lucy Arowana was very successful in literally tank transfer method, which was literally she would transfer the seahorses, and we're talking fry, not adult
Yes,
big seahorse, but fry, to a new tank of fresh water every day, no
that's how I
equipment,
did
no
it.
nothing, and it worked because they
Yep,
had fresh water every day. It's the
yep.
buildup. It's the having the
It's a pain,
biological and
but yeah,
mechanical
it's doable.
and chemical filtration in order to maintain a tank without having to switch a 75-gallon tank every day. You can't do that, right? So that's why we talk filtration. And again, just back to basics, different ways to do things. You can do it. I'm doing it in my own home. I've got one that's very artificial and everything's in the sump. I've got one that's completely no sump and has macros and rock. And, I like that one better, to be completely honest, but it is more work because the skimmer's not up to par. The equipment's not up to par. I do have K1 that I'm using as backup for the rock. And I do have the Robert King chamber, and I do have power heads that are, with quick filters that are, helping me make the flow higher and, get the stuff into the equipment so that I can remove it. And I'm using socks also. But just different ways of doing things. Hey, I think real quick, I know I don't want to go off in left field. I do see Muniwar's question, but I wanted to ask Sophie, do you have a question to throw out here? We've been going back and forth about all this stuff. I wanted to give you a chance. We're going to do an episode with just you. So don't feel like if you don't get your question answered tonight that it's over. But for tonight, like, where are you at? What are you thinking so far?
Well, I don't have anything really relating to this subject. My main question before getting seahorses is what you guys do with them while you're on vacation. And I think
Okay.
that's a bigger problem for my parents too. Yeah, because we're gonna have someone who stays over all the time, and our vacations are like a week long. But I was just kind of wondering about that.
Who wants
That's
to
ways
answer
to
first?
train someone.
I don't take vacations because nobody I know wants to take care of the seahorses. But basically, what you should do is get Ray to take care of the seahorses.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
No, or you just need to get somebody that who's willing to take it on and teach them how to take care of them and leave them with directions and things like that.
So
I volunteer Ray
I
because he's
volunteer
an
Ray too.
expert and he obviously lives near you, and I bet he would love to take care of some seahorses now and then.
That is
Well,
option one.
A week long might be a bit much at my age.
Well, what I was going to say, we'll help you talk Ray into it for sure, Sophie. But
Yeah.
what I was also going to say is, did I catch that you do have a house sitter? Just not, I mean, like, if you have a house sitter, listen, what I did is a couple things. Number one, I made videos of how I feed, how I rinse the food, how, when I feed, what I have to turn off. So I would say A is getting your tank set up so efficiently that it barely needs assistance, and it's very easy to train someone else on it. B is make a video and maybe FaceTime the person when they're feeding, at least the first few times, so that you can, walk them through it if they have questions and they have a video to refer to. See, these cameras nowadays, like I bought a camera that literally sits and just looks at my tank all day. It doesn't take up any Wi-Fi or whatever because, sorry guys, it doesn't take up anything because I turn it on. Like when it's off, it's off. It's not like using any energy or whatever. But when I'm on vacation, I'll turn it on, make sure everything's kosher with the tank. Nothing came, nothing got unplugged, nothing got turned off. And then when somebody's feeding my seahorses, I'm peeking in on them, which sounds creepy, but hey, too bad. So I would say camera is number 3, but I'm getting ready to go to Italy for 13 days. I'm leaving my seahorses and I feel fine because I've trained the person that watches them. They don't have to sit here all day. They just have to come feed them, right? And on vacation, my seahorses, their feeding schedule goes to 2 times a day instead of 3. And it's not going to kill them, right? It's not great, but it's not going to kill them. It's only for a week and a half. And I check in on them with the camera and I make sure that the person who's going to feed them is very comfortable. And I still agree, let's volunteer Ray. But if it has to be your house sitter, that she can do it. I mean, it's not.
Well, the house sitter can always have my number to get in touch with me.
If there's an emergency,
yeah,
exactly.
There you go. And I would say once you get used to your seahorses yourself, you'll be way less nervous about this because, I mean, and there are other alternatives. If someone watching this later doesn't have a house sitter, you're just, you probably can't take a 13-day vacation with seahorses if you don't have a house sitter. But there are alternatives like buying live mysids and stocking the tank with them so that they have something to feed on until you get back. If you're just talking about a weekend or even 4 or 5 days, it's doable. Don't think you can't take vacations with seahorses because you can.
And it's harder. I have to say it's harder for me because I live in a rural area. I'm in the woods in Northern California, where they shut off our power randomly if they think there's high fire danger.
Right.
And so there's times when I have to switch all the tanks onto generator instead of house electricity and things like that. And I don't want someone who's unfamiliar with all that to have to go through all that. So that's the main reason that I don't travel or anything while I have the seahorses. Is where I live, it's a much more major undertaking than it is probably where you guys are.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything that I can do to minimize any of the work that needs to be done? Or can I just leave it a little bit?
The better filtration you can set up, and I'm sure Ray is perfect guidance for you on that because he's told me he's lazy. So he probably knows the best ways to make things easier for you. I found seahorses are rather labor intensive, but like you said, there's ways to cut that down, and generally it's by, feeding practices, your filtration. It's those kind of things. The biggest danger to seahorses, which I've run into, is those bacterial infections, which come from high organics in their water, which means it's the basic husbandry of keeping their uneaten food siphoned out, however you do it, through equipment, not overfeeding them.
Yep.
Adequate water changes. It's that kind of thing that's going to lead to success. And there is ways. Like I said, the better filtration you have, the less work it's going to be for you. But Ray has more experience than any of us.
That was my question too. Is
guide for you.
So we don't know what Ray, what was what did you give her? Did you give her the tank, the sump, the skimmer, the all of
Yeah,
it?
that tank that was sitting behind here.
Yeah, I see it's gone.
Yeah. So
But
she
it
got
has the
that,
skimmer.
and the things that were in it, but a few other things that were in some of the other tanks, just so she has a bit of choice when she sets up. So it's it's long term. It's not something she is going to rush into. So she got to get all
Absolutely.
the cleaning done.
That's a
She
good
has to
idea.
get. I don't know whether
But
she's going to do the tank stand herself or whether her dad's going to do it. But it's
sure.
got to be seriously sanded and then recoated with a good rust presented or preventative paint. Um, she's I've got 12 jars downstairs there that I used to raise the reed eye in, and she's going to give that a try when the time comes. But basically, she'll be going with the type of setup I have. She'll have the rock in the sump. She'll have artificial decor. Whether she keeps the substrate or not, I don't know. That's a personal choice.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, now, uh, I'm trying to think. I think I give her three power heads.
Hmm.
That should be enough for flow in there and quick filters to go on them. And I think there might be an extra quick filter there so she can do a change out, say once a day or something, and change
Mm-hmm.
one today and clean that, and then change it out for another one. But for that matter, she can even buy some more of the pads that I use in them,
Mm-hmm.
and just change the pads in them.
So Sophie, I'm so excited for you because Ray set you up. I mean,
Yeah.
you have all the equipment that someone learns about as they go and figures out as they go. You're getting this
You're
setup
starting
that,
with it.
yeah,
But the thing is, it's all basic. Like uh, the KISS principle: keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah,
right.
And
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
I feel that the simpler you can keep things, the less problems you're going to have. It doesn't
Yeah.
eliminate problems. It just makes it a bit easier. People start getting into so much equipment and so on. When something goes wrong, it just means they've got this and this and this and this and this and this. All these things. There might have been something that's contributed to the problem that they have now. But if you
True.
got something simple, then you can eliminate things quite easy.
Mhm.
And it's especially critical for new people getting in until they gain the experience, because they're going to have problems. So
Mhm.
once they get experience with problems over a period of time, um, well, then they can be on here because I'll be too old to do anything anymore.
Don't
And
say that. Don't say
How many gallons is the tank?
it's just a 40-gallon tall, which only holds 37.
Oh,
And the
oh,
sump is a
nice.
20 the sump is a 20-gallon tall.
Uh-huh. Nice.
So the rock will be
So,
in the rock is in the sump. At least I
uh-huh.
kept it in the sump, and the
Yeah.
artificial decor was in the tank. That leaves a lot of room in the tank there for looking and seeing any crap that's around. The only
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
part is anything you have in there is going to trap the detritus and make it unseeable. So you got to blast the darn stuff to get it
Yeah,
into the water
yeah, yeah.
column and then do the siphoning out to get it out.
But the advantage to that though is it's not a huge tank.
Right.
So if you need to do a big water change,
it's not right.
that's not undo. That's one of the things I found. With smaller tanks, it's nothing for me to change out practically all the water if I need to in an
Right.
emergency. You know.
Well, and like I said, I just think Sophie's really set up for success because, again, she doesn't
Absolutely.
have to worry about the bleaching and curing of rock because you know
Mhm.
that rock is safe. It was in Ray's Seahorse tank. You can just use
Mhm.
it. If you choose to go with just rock, you could keep it exactly how he had it, where the rock's in the sump. You could put the rock back in the tank, understanding what he just said. That means you have to, like, I like rock in a tank. I like doing escape. It's
Mhm.
you have choices, but you're set up that you don't have to worry about some of the fears or things that you have to look out as a newcomer, meaning you don't have to worry about the rock. You already have an oversized skimmer. You already have a sump, which is amazing. And you have so many choices. So alleviating the work, I don't think is going to be a thing for you. We can absolutely talk further in a further episode too about, hey, you just want to like hardly ever have to do water changes. So let's add some K1. You're still going to have to do water changes. We can't get away from water changes. But I'm just saying there are things you can do to continue to add and then, have to do less work. But I don't think you're going to be doing much work anyways because he set you up perfectly. You're so lucky. I'm so
I
jealous.
did lots of work because I was doing more work without extra equipment.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but you still have, the skimmer and the basics that you need for a Seahorse tank. Whereas someone going out there and
I
starting
didn't
over.
give her a skimmer because the ones I
Oh.
have, they're 6 foot tall, eh?
Yeah.
She doesn't have a skimmer? Right. Oh, God. Okay. So then you need to get with me on the side and I will send you a skimmer. Because
I do have carbon reactor she can have.
okay. All right. So obviously he talked about earlier, the carbon reactor can be used in place of the skimmer. And if skimmers are that expensive where you guys are, please seriously get with me on the side. We'll work it out. I'll send you one.
I want to say I got a 240 gallon rated automated, you can change speed on it and everything skimmer for under $300. I want to say it was around 200. It's a nice one. And yeah, I've had it for years and they're on Amazon.
So to answer your question, Sophie, that's if it were me, you've gotten all of Ray's equipment except for a skimmer because he had he had really huge ones that don't go in the sump. I would look into a skimmer that's rated 2 times the tank size. So you said it's a 40-gallon tank. It needs to be rated at least 80, to handle 80 gallons. If not 120. The bigger the skimmer, the better. You can't go too big on a skimmer. And if you stick that in the sump, then that's going to cut back on your stuff hugely. Is Holly, Cheryl's asking a question in the comments too, but skimmer is a thing that, obviously Ray has proven that you can go a different route and use a carbon reactor or do more work yourself and do water changes. But I've always gone with the skimmer because that basically my mentor, Dan, that's what he told me to do. And it's just always helped. Like my tanks that I started out that, maybe I had to set up a tank on the fly or whatnot, and I didn't have a skimmer on the tank. I just always seemed to have problems in those tanks, probably because I wasn't doing big enough water changes and I'm lazy. But if you want to alleviate some of that work, I would say skimmer's number one.
So I just put the one I have in the chat from Amazon. Yeah. It comes in different sizes, but there's the link to it. If you want to show it, it's I think $280 for a 240 DC.
Hang on, I'm trying to copy and paste here. And I do want to make sure real quick, guys, that we do answer the question in the comments. I love where we're going with this and that this is so cool. And we're going to do individual episodes with just Sophie and with just Cheryl so that, they can ask all their questions and not be, left. But at the point that we're at, Sophie's going to work on sanding her tank, sand and cleaning the tank. Cheryl's going to work on getting her rock prepped for her. So we're all still in a good place, even though it feels like, we didn't get through it all. You can't get through it all in one night, right? It is a process. So they're both in good places.
It takes a while.
But I did want to go ahead and answer real quick. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Munawar. One of the 4 seahorses I have recently became sluggish and it changed color from black to white sand and hangs out on the floor of the tank and hardly is eating. Just 1 mysis shrimp at each time of feeding. Is he sick? How can I treat this one seahorse? Ray?
Well, you know what I'm going to say.
What?
When in doubt, take it out.
Take it out. Okay. And so you're saying
put it in a hospital tank and start doing water changes, minimum 50% every other day.
Okay.
There's something not right with the Seahorse, and the way I know it for sure is because you are concerned about it. I don't know how long you've been in it. I don't in the hobby, and I don't know how long you've had these uh,
Mhm.
seahorses. But I suspect the water quality is the problem, and unfortunately, people keep thinking that because their test kits show everything to be okay, it
Right.
is not okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the problem that seahorses have is related to dissolved organic levels, and we have no test kit that we can test for to know when those organic levels are getting out of hand. Um, so organic dissolved organics can be way through the roof, and yet all the rest of your test kits can show that everything is great.
And what goes into dissolved organics, Ray? Uneaten food, poop,
Well,
like
uh,
everything building up, right?
organic is just that organics. Anything that is organic, a compound that's released from the decaying food, and that if it's an organic one, whether it's um, I don't know, my mind won't function
That's
out for
fine. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just remember when I first started this and people started saying, "Oh, you're dissolved organics." I was like, "Okay, what does that mean?" Like, I mean, what do you mean my dissolved organics? I needed somebody to say. It means you're feeding too much or there's uneaten food building up in the tank. You're seeing nuisance algae because of these dissolved organics. And, I wanted to clarify that for anybody new. But go on.
yeah. But basically, the first thing, and here in Canada, because we can't get antibiotics, our number one line of treatment is put it in the hospital tank, and it's critical if you can get the temperature down to 68 degrees or 20 degrees centigrade. Um, you lower it slowly, but get it down to there so that the bacteria can't multiply near so fast at that temperature range. And then by doing the 50% minimum water changes every other day, you're keeping it in water that is very good, and it's got to be better than what the tank was in, even if you're an excellent keeper. But obviously, the water isn't good enough in the tank, or you wouldn't have the problem. So by putting them in there, it's going to take some time before things get turned around. When seahorses come down with a problem, usually it started quite a long time before we actually see any signs of it. And
Right.
as such, it's like people. You can't just get someone um, cured overnight. Like you look at a cold and look how long it hangs on. You get the flu. It's not something that happens in a hurry. Well, with bacterial problems or parasitic problems, again, it's not going to happen in a hurry. So you're looking at, I would say, don't expect anything under 10 days. And there are times when I've gone through about 3 weeks before I saw changes making things better. And it couldn't be any variation in there. And the reason that this seahorse um, has come down with a problem, and you have three more that didn't come down with it yet, is because the seahorses all have varying degrees of immune capabilities. This one came down with the problem first because it's the weakest uh, in the tank there of those having immune capabilities. Um, if the others were all extreme, it's possibly that they might not come down to it until conditions get worse, but it's not worth taking the chance. So, in addition to treating this seahorse in a hospital tank and the water changes, do a major water change and tank cleaning on your display tank. And that includes take a power head or turkey basters or whatever, blast all over the place to get the loose or the crap that's trapped in any of the decor that you have or round rock work if you have that. Get that stuff out and vacuum it out. Get your major water change done, and then you may consider doing after a few more days do another major one. Um, it's it's something that it sounds like you have caught it in time. So you can turn it around. It's just going to take some work, and it's going to take some patience. Now, I'll shut up and let the others give their opinions, because in this hobby, opinions differ from one person to another based on their experiences.
Well, and there's different ways to deal with things, right?
Yep, that's right.
I think that Holly's story at the beginning of this episode, where she was talking about Sadie having tail bubbles and expressing that she managed to fix that in the tank, that doesn't I don't think that takes away from Ray's idea, when in doubt pull it out, because Holly's been dealing with her seahorses for a long time. But what I will say in relation to that story is, the second that I saw one of my males with tail bubbles, I pulled him out. I started throwing medicine at him. I was like treating him and all this stuff. And this is the hybrid story, my hybrid seahorse. And I treated him, and I threw all this medication at him, and then he stopped eating because he was in medicine and he was uncomfortable and unhappy and etc. And the tail bubbles weren't getting better, and nothing was getting better. And I ended up putting him in just a 10-gallon tank and doing massive water changes, and he got better. It was, I mean, this has not happened for everybody. This doesn't happen for me. It was just one of those, oh my gosh, what the heck just happened? I don't even understand. But I'm just saying to prove that not every time that you see something wrong do you want to throw them in medicine. But taking them out and putting them in a hospital tank is a
Clean
different
water.
clean water. And as Ray said, looking at what's wrong with the tank. Now, I will say that nobody's insulting anyone here. We don't know. As Ray also said, usually a problem with a seahorse, the problem occurred months before we
the
see
water quality issue.
Well,
is
and
what it comes
also,
down
guys,
to.
we don't know how long this person has been keeping seahorses. He
Mhm.
could have gotten them a month ago, and all of a sudden, one of them's not eating. So, unfortunately, with this type
That
of
doesn't
question,
mean your water, like what happened before you had the seahorse. You
right?
know, it's like
So,
Ray said,
unfortunately,
it's a back history thing that
yes.
affects them.
So, unfortunately, in a case like this, we want to help you. If you want to ever jump in or give us more information, maybe we have a Seahorse Whisperer group on Facebook. You're already on Facebook, so put it up as a question in the group, because then we can go back and forth. If you don't want to do it here, and we can say, how big's the tank? How long have you had the seahorses? What equipment do you have? How often do you feed? And I know that feels sometimes like, oh my gosh, all I want's an answer, and they're asking me all these questions. But the
so
answers
much
matter.
plays into it. It's so much
They
plays
matter.
into it. But I'll say my simple tip is this. What I found in my experience over the last about 6 years that I've been keeping them, the most likely thing, if you're having a problem with your seahorses and it's not a physical thing, like they got stung by something or something, hurt them, it's usually a water quality issue.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's a water quality issue that you can't test for and you can't see.
Or see.
It has nothing to do with your nitrates, your phosphates, anything you can test for, throw that out the window. All it is high organics in the water, like Ray says over and over again. And prevention really is the key to that. It's removing everything that they don't eat, not overfeeding. Adequate filtration is the prevention for that. And if they do have problems because of that, and you see they run into the thing where they're not eating, or they get tail bubbles, or they're floating upside down, all those kind of things, it's all related to that. And once it happens, it's very hard to reverse.
Well, that's
It
and that's
takes a lot
why.
of clean water and time. Like Ray said, it took a long time generally for that problem to come about. It can take a long time to make it go away. And we can
Sure.
use clean water, antibiotics, is the treatment for that. The hospital tank, a 10-gallon tank where they have clean water all the time, and possibly medication if it's warranted, things like your antibiotics, Diamox if they're floating, if they have buoyancy issue, that kind of thing. So there is things you can do, but it's hard, and it's best if you can prevent it from the beginning. and
Sure.
and it's simple. It's such a simple thing, but in this 5 years that I've been on here, we talk about it, the subject of it, over and over and
I
over.
know, but I feel like
And
I
so
feel
for
like I feel
beginners, I just say, just be aware that seahorses are prone to bacterial infections caused by high organics in their water. Do the
so.
best that you can to prevent high organics in their water. And
Amen. And that's why I want to have an episode with just Sophie and just Cheryl so that we can walk through in each situation
starting
because I
out.
think they want different situations. I
Mhm.
think, I don't know for sure, but even with Zen too, we've got one person that wants to do a more natural tank with rock and sand and other critters and etc. And we can walk through how to set that up. When we do, guys, though, all I would say is a newcomer watching this episode is probably going to be like, blah, 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 because we kind of go back and forth and all around.
There's different
And
ways, and
I
there's
know,
they're all
time
good.
out, time out, time out. That's why I'm saying we're going to do an episode. Hey, for any newcomer that wants to set up a natural tank, and we're going to go with Zen, and she's going to ask all her questions. We're going to steer clear of giving our opinions about why it should be or sand free and all that. We're going to literally answer questions about how to set up a natural tank. Then we'll do an episode with Cheryl. Hey, how to set up an artificial tank, and we'll just completely focus on that, not go around and argue and go back and forth and well, but this and that and the other. Just if this is the way you want to do it, this is how you do it. Then we'll have 3 different episodes. You want to set up natural, watch this one. You want to set up artificial, watch this one. And you want to set up combination, watch this one. That's what I want to do, just because I don't want to confuse people or make it worse. Seahorses are not that hard to keep, you guys. It just depends on your choices and how you want to do it. And we can cover all 3 topics. We just need to be more concise and focus in, is what I think.
Oh,
Okay.
and for Zan, no, I don't use tap water. I use RODI. I have an RODI system.
And
Good night,
Chris Terry,
Chris.
we need you in here to help us. And
And
I'm sorry that if
phosphates and nitrates are low in my tanks.
sorry, I'm not. I'm trying to follow it all.
But
And again, guys,
there's
like
still issues with organics. Like Ray says, it doesn't necessarily play into each other.
right.
It's whole
So you
different.
guys, I do apologize. I hate when I have to end it on like a note where I feel like we haven't gotten to the conclusion of anything, but we can't cover it all in one night. It is 10 o'clock. I gotta go find my daughters. So I am gonna have to end it for tonight. I'm sorry if I missed your question, especially Zen. If I missed your question, I'm so sorry. But Cheryl, we so appreciate you coming. I know you have more questions. I would say, right? I would say what you said in the chat was perfect. Get on figuring out the rock, whether you're going to use it, and then curing it if you are. And then we'll have you back another time and we'll go from there. Like it is a process. You even said yourself you might be learning more, leaning more towards a combo now. So maybe that'll be the episode we do with you. But I just want us to focus in on what the person wants. So you got to kind of figure that out. And then we'll focus in on what you want and advise you to the best of our abilities to make sure you're successful so you don't have any of the problems that high organics lead to. We can set you up for that, whether it be using biological and water changes or skimmer and more equipment or sump or what. There's so many options. We'll focus in and we'll make more clear episodes that could help people. Sound good, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Go buy shirts. No, I'm just kidding. Not yet. Let me finish the website. But for tonight, appreciate you all. Cheryl, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody who came.
Yes, thank
And
you.
I hate cutting it off, guys. I could talk to you all night, but I got kids. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next week. And Cheryl, get with me on the side and we'll schedule an episode just for you. Okay. All right.